give out your location when I call your name, okay? Commissioner Edwin.
Present, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Winkler.
Also here, and I'm in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Cass.
Present in Plymouth.
Commissioner Nelson.
Present and in City of Ann Arbor.
Vice Chair Garber.
City of Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Medina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Collins.
Dearborn.
Commissioner
Here in Ann Arbor.
Goss.
Present.
And Commissioner Katz.
Present in Ypsilanti.
I think I have covered everyone.
I'm in Ann Arbor there.
Liz.
It's okay.
Leslie, you're in Ann Arbor. I always miss numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Next. Agenda. Anybody have anything they want to add to the agenda? That is true. Would somebody make a motion to accept it?
I move to accept the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda accepted. Minutes. Leslie, public comment? Oh, thank you. Good point. Public comment. I'm really together today.
Presently. No one's here presently.
Okay. We'll go on. Minutes. These are minutes from June. I'll go them to July because we did not have a meeting. Can we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes. I second.
Discussion?
This is Pam. I have several suggestions for corrections to the minutes.
Okay.
This is beginning on page 2. They're just minor. Under schedule and strategic planning, it says L standby ask, and it should be past tense asked, A-S-K-E-D. I'm not sure what it should read under in support of heightened to the impact of speech on others. Currently, L. Stambach discussed the wording and title of a proposed resolution, and it says and unanimously voted. That should say HRC unanimously voted to approve. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to read a new resolution or a resolution newly entitled. It says resolution condemning offensive and or hateful speech.
Yes, I think it from how it was first submitted to.
So then it should be the resolution newly entitled.
I see.
Okay. I'm asking, I'm not sure.
Or as amended.
Okay. Voted to approve an amended resolution entitled Resolution Condemning Offensive and or Hateful Speech.
Yes, anybody have an idea of how they want to have this phrased? I see what you're saying.
Because as it reads now, it's not correct.
Right. Amended title amended to, how's that? To resolution. Well, with the revised title of, how's that? Pam, what I do?
So where are you adding amended?
I'm not, I took it out. Approve the resolution with the revised title of resolution condemning offensive and/or hateful speech.
Okay,
I mean, I think that's what, it's not a big phrase, but it says what I think you're saying.
okay. And then we understand Crown, but since these minutes are becoming part of, I believe, Legistar, I think Crown should be spelled out as we do NDO and other items. This is under Crown Amendment Update in addition requested. Again, on page 2.
Yeah.
So just to add spell out Crown.
Is Crown an acronym?
Yes.
Okay. We can do that then.
Under draft resolution in support of city council, it has resolution condemning offensive and hyphen or hateful speech should probably be and slash or
Yes.
hateful speech, consistent with what we page 3. Top of the page is talking about Aisha. Commissioners agreed to again invite students in her, and I've changed that just to make it a little more concise, U of M School of Social Work Policy course. And then further down, just a couple more. Under communication, third paragraph, I suggested that climate emergency and environment are human rights issues, plural.
Yes.
That should be HR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all.
Good catches. Any comments about any of that? Is that all right with people? Then we should have an amendment, a resolution, or a motion to approve.
To approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
All in favor?
Um,
Good. Conversion therapy. Conversion therapy, our ordinance was approved on Monday. It is probably the shortest ordinance with 3 pages. It took us the longest time of anyone we worked on, and it just feels very, it's very good to have it unanimously. We have a lot of people to thank for this. A huge team worked on this, and do some recognition here. This actually was introduced to us by a student that mayors who brought the issue to our attention. City Attorney Stephen Postman tried his hand at it briefly, and then turned it over to the very capable hands of Margaret Radbaugh, who was just wonderful. And the fact that Linda and I are still that, and that it's such a really sort of short and elegant piece of work. Gary Harp, law school students called the Outlaws, did a lot to educate us and offered all kinds of wording that came in useful. John Reiser and Blay helped us determine whether this should be a criminal or civil issue, with a criminal or civil penalty, and that was one of the big issues. Our own Linda Winkler was amazing. She asked all the right, I know she's shaking her head, but that's false, don't believe her. She asked all the right legal questions, and when we got some of the wrong answers, the ones we didn't want, she found good ways around them that were still legal. She was amazing. And then there was Aisha and Diane, who helped us make a lot of some of the key decisions. We had you folks who, when we decided, when we thought we,
Before my time, but didn't Corinne work on this when she was on the commission?
I think this is after Corinne. I'm not. Linda, do you remember?
I met with Corinne in the library before I became commissioner,
And she was talking
about it then.
Well,
Okay.
it could be. It's really been quite a while.
But
But you're right.
I'd like to thank her also.
Yeah. This group, when we first brought it back to you, Once the
Recording in
people-
progress.
It's effective. Am I true? I see some head shaking. Okay. I think identify
Recording in
problems
progress.
and to start coming up with maybe probably outreach to center, neutral zone, Naomi Goldberg, our liaison, LGBT liaison to the city. We've got Murphy, I think I don't know him first name offhand, who is our police LGBT liaison. We probably need maybe she can suggest some other person on the police force who should be involved in it. So we need to eventually bring people to, we need to start with forming that we need, and then getting together a group to come up with some answers. I did ask our, almost 20 outside readers if they had any materials already available that they've seen or used before, having to do with how do you explain this to the public, how do you enforce it. So I asked for materials. So far I haven't got to ask. What do you think?
Commissioner Silva has his hand up.
I well, at capacity, but for the formation of this new group, I wanted to offer my advice in that I think it would be pivotal to look at this as more as a public education opportunity. Now, I really think that majority of the sort of and communication about this should be just even marketing the fact that this and what it looks like in practice and how to avoid, such harmful procedures. Additionally, I would encourage anybody working groups to reach out to the university as well, because of the number of interest groups who would like to be helpful in that case as well.
Judah?
At least from the governor, that they were going to adopt something along these lines. Did anyone else see that? I'm wondering if I'll have to go look for that. I was wondering, I didn't read the actual proclamation or ordinance or whatever, but I wondered if it was modeled after ours, and if so, what they were doing to publicize. But I thought I saw a press release about a month ago, so I'll go look for that. Someone else seems to have seen that.
I know.
The governor's office, the governor's office, within their authority, dollars to support conversion therapy. They are not able to enact a statewide ban without the legislature.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that this is something that Gary Harper was working on years ago, and I'm probably still working on it, but that it's never gotten very far. It's always introduced and it never so far. Linda?
I mean, to me, the first priority is making sure that maybe the city attorney's office or city council communicates with the police department to let them know, A, that it passed, B, making sure that the officers are trained, making sure they're equipped to investigate, whatever they need to do to be ready if they complain. That's, to me, is number one, and past that would be great. And I don't know that that's our role, although we can, but it seems like it might be more effective coming from the city attorney, coming from Marion Slay, who works with, and John Reiser, who works with the police all the time.
I think that's all true. However, to know some more information from some of these other informers about how it looks, recognize what's going on, what to be looking, how to investigate it. I have a feeling it's not quite cut and dry as things like this are looking for.
I feel like it's their, I mean, I don't mean that we can't work with them, but I think we have to give them some credit that they know information, and work with the city attorney too. But I think it's our job to monitor to make sure it's happening. That's just my 2 cents.
You think it's our job to make sure it's happening?
I think it's our job to check with Margie and John and Ariane to make sure that the police are handling it the way they're supposed to be handling it, the way they're supposed to be training, and then ask them to help them. Or get them information or
Thoughts about how this might, what we ought to do. Making sure that this is well implemented. Or is it not our job? Participating in a group to fix problems, these issues.
Yeah, I can help with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. I'm on the board of the Gym Toy Community.
Great. I think that would be very helpful. Maybe who would like to be part of this. Anybody else? That's a very good start.
And not so much for volunteering to assist, but maybe, excuse me, making recommendations for how we can publicize this. And in the past, I had previously suggested that we, I don't know, the presentation on CTN, and not just for the conversion, but the most current legislation that we through or had sponsored through City Council, where we're sitting down. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but having the conversation where we notify the public of the most current changes to the ordinance, this being one of them. I know we're still working out some of the things. At some point, we may want to identify either yourself or others, or even more, some of us, speaking to the community about that we have made recently to our ordinance that can be an impact to the public at large. The other thing that I was thinking of, and this is using the press, is contacting Ryan and doing a sit down with him and doing an overview of some of these pieces of the ordinance that are publicized, not here, but maybe talking with him about all of these pieces that are now new to our ordinance, publicizing it in whatever form he utilizes. I don't know if it's MLive or, but new possible ways of getting the information out to the public, in addition to the ones that we already have in place or anticipate putting in place.
I would be really interested on the CTN initiative, Pam.
Great. Would one of you be interested in just calling CTN and finding out what it would take?
I can do that.
That would be great. That would be a good start. We have to have what do we need to do? Just to start. Great. Okay, anything else? Okay. To fair chance housing ordinance. And in some ways, there's a thread that goes, this is publicity. Fair chance housing ordinance has inside of it, unlike the conversion, about publicity. And Lyndon, you might want to talk about that for a minute. It says,
Fair chance. So, you all know about the really good poster that Margie and we put together. I think that might be appearing in ground cover. Send it off to somebody. I thought that would be a good place for it. It's on the tenants page of the city site. It's on our webpage. I did recently remember that the ordinance says that the city had 90 days from the date that the ordinance was published to send to all registered landlords a copy of the new ordinance. I think maybe that's cracks. I asked Margie about it this past week, and she sent a note off to I guess it's the acting city manager or city administrator. And she's on it now, and hopefully that will happen. So that will take care of notifying the landlord. And the other piece of it, of course, is notifying the potential tenant. And we also kind of talked with working with Lisa Wandrash about public all of these new ordinances. I mean, there's city ordinances. So she also has an interest in making sure people are aware of them, not just us. So, we can talk to her about that. And the help of Margie, that might work too.
And I sent you the copy of the couple ideas that John Reiser sent. It's just ways of combining what we do, and it makes it very easy for people. And this is critical. We've really circulated it quite a bit, and it's still not very well known, for a chance. There is a need, people have mentioned now, for a colorful, short version of this poster. And do any of you have any marketing or ability to look at that poster and figure out how to make it colorful and short?
I don't think we need it, but I think we need it. I think Margie had worked with whoever in communications to do the longer poster. Let the city do it.
The city can do it, but we have to say, it would say.
Okay.
I don't think they can, we can, and what kind of picture we want on it.
Okay.
I think we don't have to draw it.
Okay.
But I think we have to specify it well. We make a big difference.
Can we reach out to one of our former commissioners, Rick, who was in marketing?
I think that's a great idea. And as a matter of fact, I already called him. I'm impressed. So yes, I think he will help us with that a little bit. Maybe we will have something to show you, or maybe one of you could think about how to do it. I don't, but I know it's complicated in my skill bank. It must be in somebody's.
Just one more thing. I think we did leave it. I think John Reiser thinks that he's going to talk to Margie about publicizing about talking to Lisa Wandrash and Communications about publicizing all of these new ordinances. So, I'll bug them on that. So hopefully something will happen.
Good. I kind of like the idea that he suggested about having a one, like the calling, if it's broken, if some website where you can call for all kinds of things that might be broken at the city level, and you can complain about it, but they're all the tangible, water main problem or something. But for having one place for complaints would also be helpful. And that might happen. Okay, but there's Lisa Wandrish and maybe John Reiser. We'll see. Religious head coverings. I think that's all of it. Yes, religious head coverings. Linda, it's yours.
Hello, so you heard that after the Crown language came up and was passed, at least one person in the community wrote in and asked about protecting discrimination against people who wear religious head coverings. So I and Diana and Aisha agreed to look into that. The three of us met, but I've kept them in the loop on the communications I've had. Both Margie and her intern, who did a little bit of work and sent a little bit of information on it, and also Dan Korobkin, who's the leader for the Michigan ACLU, who sent the question off to New York ACLU, who wrote back with some help. I could go into, I'll tell you as briefly as I can, sort of what some of the issues are, but we haven't, the three of us haven't met as a group, and we haven't met with Margie to discuss it. But any thoughts you have, of course, are always welcome. So unlike with the Crown protections, there already is federal law that requires employers to allow religious head coverings, as well as other religious attire, jewelry, practices, as long as they can reasonably accommodate those things without undue hardship. So that already is different from the Crown protection. There is no federal protection for Crown type things, but there is for religious in the employment context. The next thing is I did a little bit of research, not much. Most of the laws I found cover. I haven't done any that cover just religious head covering. To cover everything to do with discrimination on the basis of religious practice, clothing, jewelry, head coverings, everything. And they use a similar language as the federal language, where there's that exception if it's not reasonable to allow it for some good safety type reason. The one exception to that I found, and of course there may be more, and the ACLU sent this to me, is New York City, which just this year adopted a rule that specifically covers head coverings on the basis of that people have for racial reasons as well as for religious reasons. So it's one rule that covers head coverings on the basis because of a person's race and or a person's religion. And in both cases, there's an exception to those protections if those head coverings present some safety risk. So you recommended that was the best approach, have a rule that protects discrimination and both of those. So the ship has already sailed on the Crown thing and in our ordinance, and our ordinance is much more simple than the New York City ordinance, so I don't know that that's the best way to go for us. Anyway, the questions I'm left with are these. If we use the same kind of approach that we did with the Crown, like just saying religion includes religions and such, it kind of begs the question, what about religious attire, religious practice? Are we saying those aren't as important? It's a lot than the Crown situation. And the other thing is, first I have the question, and then do we need a sort of reasonable exception like the federal law has? But if there's some safety issue, does an employer still have to allow it? And then I realize we have in our ordinances this thing called a Bonafide Occupational Qualification, which kind of takes care of that. So we don't have to include that exception language. And then the last question I had was, since there already is this protection on the federal level in the employment context, do we even need to include it in our ordinance? And the answer might be yes. it's not just in the employment context that this discrimination might happen. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too much, but that's what I'm at least. And do you have any thoughts or questions?
I did do some research through the EEOC on, religion, religious accommodations, and I'm not sure that it's pertinent that those things are included in our ordinance if people are already protected, through the EEOC. And I know that head coverings have come up in employment situations for safety reasons. For example, I'm a surgeon covering and go into the OR. We have found that there are, it's not accommodation isn't the right word, because we're not, I don't know what the right, I don't want to use accommodation because I think of accommodation in a different way, but there are that we have adapted and changed or purchased sterile coverings for the way that people are dressed when they are going into an OR, so that the patient is and the employee is religion and religious practices are protected. So I'm not sure that we would necessarily have to. The same thing with like clothing and religious expression. There are already protections under Title law for folks that want to wear, for example, I want to wear a necklace with a cross on it, or my clothing when I come into work. Those things are protected already. So we might be all right just to talk about hair and head coverings and stuff. Or more.
I think the aspect is that I'm not sure is thoroughly enough relates to the issue of religious and racial identity, that so that it's not, you wouldn't say that I wear natural expression of my African American heritage. It's just part of my identity because this is how my hair turned out. I wouldn't be sure that we don't lose any of that by tying ourselves too tightly to already established anti-discrimination ordinances. So that it would be more fungible. I mean, I'm sure we haven't even touched the iceberg in terms of white controlled spaces are still going to try to control the bodies of Black. So I just want to be sure we don't lose that aspect. The creating an open and respectful world for natural hair.
Yeah.
Which everybody is what Crown stands for.
What? See,
Creating an open and respectful world for natural hair.
Ah. Thank you.
Does the W
Maybe. That would be a good way. I'd put it in there.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember we're creating an open. I think W is world.
Oh, okay.
Right. Open and respectful. world.
Yeah, it's to create a respectful and open world for natural hair.
There's no H. Where's the H?
Right?
Crown, huh?
Mhm. So do we feel that we can do that?
Do we feel we can do?
Mhm. Keep open all of the ways in which efforts to control marginalized ethnic, racial, religious communities are going to, and not just play whack-a-mole, and every time
Right.
the method of control comes up, we write a new, right? Amendment.
Was my concern when we started looking at the Crown, because when you say racial discrimination, if you keep it broad, as soon as you're writing, people start thinking that that's only what's covered, even though, but not exclusively, hair, for example, that the race includes, among other things. I don't know. Sometimes it seems as though if you don't try, you get a broader definition. Your definition is.
Yeah, I'm not against the creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. I'm not against it. I'm for it. I just want to be sure that we, in a way that it says inclusive of, not limited to.
So does someone have an example of a clothing that isn't already covered existing law that isn't protected by freedom of expression and EEOC and other laws? What would be something that we can protect that isn't already protected?
I would imagine, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, what about in the sort of housing context? I mean, if somebody didn't get housing because they're wearing they're Sikh and they're wearing a turban, I mean, our ordinance does already protect against discrimination on the basis of how, if you,
I've got it. I've got one. Hoodie.
I know, but we're talking, I mean,
I know, but that's
Okay,
exactly what I was referring to.
right,
Right.
right. Okay, I mean, Kitty, you know that the Crown language is already in there though, and it passed by city council? Okay, just checking.
No. What I was saying, I'm for.
Okay.
Yeah, and for it. I just
Okay,
don't want to carve too narrow a channel in the general in our discrimination ordinance. That's all.
right,
Because
right.
we run into things like, young black men wearing hoodies are being, murdered disproportionately, and that's real.
right. So are we, so I was looking into specifically religion and whether we want to, we currently have no definition of religion in the ordinance. And somebody in the community asked, do we want to specify coverage for head coverings, for religious reasons, since we now have the Crown language? And that's the question that I was looking into.
And I don't know if that gives us more protection, less, or the same to try to cover it.
I guess I was trying to point out that I think it's different. Head coverings as an expression of, or as a
Yes, I see.
expression of should, I think it should be protected and would see it as protected already.
Mhm.
I guess I felt that the creating a respectful and open world for natural hair as so much as it relates to race has to be done in this country. It has to be specified, right? Because it
Right,
just keeps resurfacing.
right. No, that's why we did it. Because it had resurfaced and because people were saying it was different, even though we didn't think it was, we want to make it real clear that it's covered.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing that the religious covering may not be necessary. Is that true? I'm trying to figure out where we are on this.
I mean, I don't know, Diana, Aisha, do you want to meet with Margie and talk about it, and we can come back with a recommendation on one way or the other? Is that
That's a good
okay with
idea.
everybody? I mean, because
Yeah.
we've never really met about it. I've just done a little research and I'm throwing out what
I
I've
see.
learned. But
Yeah.
and if anybody else wants to be in on the discussion, that would be great too. So just, maybe we can meet specifically about that and then come back and talk about it one more time.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is anti-Asian hate town hall meeting. There was a very interesting, very neat event that took place a couple of weeks ago, spearheaded by City Council member Lynn Song, and sponsored by the Black Caucus of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party, among other places. And Aisha went, and I went. I don't know if anybody else went, but it was amazing, and it changed my thinking. And Aisha, you wanted. I know you also felt changed by it.
Yeah, I think it was a great opportunity just for communities who are, oppressed to come together in solidarity. And there were all these Asian American and Black restaurants that showed up and provided food. And there is talk about this being an ongoing event. And I remember thinking this is a place that HRC should show up at events like this and have a table that just, with something brief on who we are, a form on how to file a complaint. So I really started turning kind of my organizing wheels, and I said, these are the events that we belong at, right? But it was fantastic.
I was thinking, I was trying to figure out how many people were there. I'm not very good at estimating. What do you think?
I would say I'm really not either. I would say maybe like 70. I mean, people came and went throughout the day, but there was a few people there.
Yeah, I thought it was over 100. It was quite interesting.
Maybe you're closer.
It was at Southeast Park. It was, people brought their kids, and they had, there were swings and games and all kinds of stuff, and a few speeches by some key people. And it was celebrating Black Asian solidarity. So there were people from Black organizations who spoke a little bit, people from Asian organizations, and they basically talked about we're stronger together. And it was Ellie Savitt was also there. It was, not very much talk, mostly just getting to know one another, but very, very nice and very well attended. And I think you're right. We should have, next time we will have a table or something there.
Yeah.
That was good. But what we were talking, we have a subcommittee or a group of people who are talking about Asian Town Hall. And I think that this will change the way I know I will think about what we ought to do. And we will be meeting, but maybe not for a standard town hall, maybe something a little bit different and a little bit, again, more getting to know you, getting to know your problems. How can we help? We're here, and this is how you get in touch with us. Kind of a situation. Anyway, it was exciting. Finally, on this agenda, I have scheduling the strategic planning meeting. What happened was I was supposed to schedule it and immediately found out that members were gone for weeks in June and July, and then COVID came back. And I think we're again probably not likely to be able to meet face to face. So I would like to suggest, I mean, you could try, we could meet outside somewhere, but I think it's getting risky again. What do you want to do? Any people? I mean, I'm aware that I have never seen. I was talking to Aiden today. I have no idea. I don't know if I'd recognize him on the street. I don't know if he's 3 feet tall. Judah, I fortunately know, but a lot of you've never seen him in real life either. So I mean, I miss the contact, but I think there's some things we need to talk about, like what are the things we care most about? If we have to make a decision about what to choose, what kinds of issues to choose, what should be our guideline? What issues do we have about the way we work together, and how can we be more effective and efficient? So those are the kinds of things that you usually work with, usually do with strategic planning, besides getting to know one another a little bit better. And if necessary, we can do it on Zoom. And if you want to do that, I would recommend that we probably take a Wednesday evening, if that's a time, or that I do another doodle, which I did do, but not.
Leslie, how long do you anticipate the session being?
My guess is we need maybe 2 sessions of an hour and a half would work. Something like that. I don't think we need an awful lot of time. Maybe even less. I don't know. We've got some work that you did probably months ago now. And I've summarized some of it. I will summarize the rest of it. I think I don't think it's going to be that much time.
I think that we could fill out some sort of survey about our comfortability with perhaps meeting in person. I think that we could, at a base level sort of proposition, we could do something outdoors that's socially distanced as well while it's still warm out. And that way as well, if we meet in person, we could likely just do 1 3-hour stretch so we don't have to take up 2 hour-and-a-half slots for people. But it's definitely something we can gauge via email.
People yes, Judah?
I would second that. I've had meetings with 7, 8, 9 people in person, safely spaced outdoors, and people were comfortable. So at least I can't speak for anyone else, but speaking for me, I think that could work if the weather's good.
Is there a pavilion that we could reserve? I mean, I know that, Delhi Metro Park, you can reserve those. And I'm just thinking it would be nice to have a shelter.
Yeah, right. I think that's true for Gallup too.
Island Park has pavilions.
Do we have to record our meetings?
No.
But we do have to post it,
and I don't want it recorded, and I don't want CTN. I mean, I don't want it televised to the world.
But it would be posted. It would be an open meeting.
It is.
The location would be posted.
And we will need minutes and all that.
Okay.
I know that County Farm Park has a pavilion, but I don't think that you can reserve it. I think it's just kind
You're
of
right.
first come, first serve, but that's always a decent space because it has facilities as well for people to use.
Right.
Do we need to be mindful of accessibility issues? I think we do need, let me rephrase that. We should be mindful of accessibility issues.
Okay. Can we charge somebody with finding a place that has what kind of accessibility issues are you concerned about?
Well, physical. Transportation could be an issue for folks. I mean, I just think that if we're going to meet, it should be someplace centrally located during times when there's public transportation. And if we're going to meet in a kind of park setting, we just need to make sure that there are hard surfaces as opposed to trails. I mean, just those things.
The southeast park too, which is around it's around the city dump. It's around the recycling center on Ellsworth. That's where the Black Asian celebration for solidarity celebration took place, and it has a covered thing too. I don't know if you can. I think you can reserve it, but I'm not positive.
You can.
Okay. So that I mean, would that be the kind? Would you think that was accessible enough?
I can't call it to mind. I have a general idea of where it's located, but I can't picture the surroundings.
It's referred to as Nike Park. And the reason why they call it that is they take old gym shoes of Nike and make the basketball court.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They recycle it. Yeah. It's on the corner of Ellsworth and Platt.
Yeah. So it's nearby, and you can go.
Yeah, that's been good. That location is on several bus routes. I know.
Yeah.
So that's,
Okay. So that's got some. That's.
And it has a pavilion, a shelter?
Yes,
Yes, it does. And facilities, bathroom facilities, picnic tables. We could all sit at one and still be socially distant, but under the pavilion.
Yeah.
Bathroom.
The sides aren't covered, but the top is.
Right. But once it's reserved, they clean. I walk there most mornings. That's why I'm familiar with it. And it's got a couple baseball diamonds. It's got, playground materials. Not that if any of us wants to take advantage of that, we could, but yeah. Just saying.
Okay. We will check it out then. I think we'll ask Denise. Yes.
I wouldn't mind checking with Park and Recreations through the city and see what facilities are open and available for your strategic planning.
That would be wonderful. Okay. Times, do we have to have it? We probably shouldn't have it at night if we're going to have it outside. Are there, I guess I have to doodle, but is there
I even feel like anytime, like if we did from like 5:30 to 8:30, it should still be plenty.
Oh, that's true.
Light out, and I'm very cautious about during working hours as well. So,
and I'm sure you're not the only one. Is 5:30 to 8:30? Is that a fairly good time for people?
Yeah, I suppose the other thing, Denise, when you call for the parks is to ask whether or not Rec and Ed uses them, because the park that Pam is talking about is a nice park. There's two parts, but I know that when my kid was little, we'd go there for soccer. So we want to be sure that what we're renting, like if we're going to get a pavilion or whatever, that it's not like, the middle of 82 soccer games or something like that. So it's something to ask when you're, at least at that park, like at Gallup Park, I don't think that they have like kids soccer games through Rec and Ed. But
yes, there are a few parks in the city that are still offering summer camp.
Oh, thank you.
So if we sort of solidify a date, then I know what area, space of time that we're looking at. I think when school returns, then those camps are over. But I'm thinking at least it might be close to the end now since it's the mid of August.
Okay,
But I'll check that out.
thank you. How about food? Do you want to eat? I assume you want to eat also? Do you want to order pizzas?
It's 5:30 to
or-
8:30, yeah.
Between 5:30 and 8:30, yes.
Yeah, I figured. I would want to eat. Do you want to just order pizzas and bring desserts, or do you want to
That sounds
everybody bring their own, or
easy. Yes.
yes, everybody bring their own?
Oh, I was saying yes to pizza.
Oh, that's what I wanted to make sure I knew. How about pizza for everybody? Does everybody eat pizza?
Yep.
Okay. Wonder if we can get the city to pay. I will see. Okay.
That too.
And drinks, just sodas and things, and cookies or something. Okay, so you want somehow you want us to come up with
Dates.
dates. Is there a day that's usually good for people? Starting
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
I would second Wednesday because we're so used to taking them anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will go.
August or September?
You only have one more Wednesday in August.
Okay.
And then you,
Well, let's see what Denise can do for us.
How about if we also, if any of us are going to be away, let you know that, which Wednesdays over the next month?
Yeah, that would be nice.
and there's
All
5
the time,
Wednesdays.
I just want to sort of get a date.
There's 5 Wednesdays in September.
Okay, that gives us a lot of time, a lot of chances. Let's see what Denise can find, and we'll be back.
Hey, Denise, thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
No problem.
Anything, oh, I know. So that's the end. We have Commissioner Communications, and Aiden, I know you want to say something here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. So just as an update for our facial recognition group meetings that we've been having, we met today, and we, thanks to the efforts of our city attorney and many others, we have a first draft that primarily focuses on the language basically states that facial recognition software cannot be used as the sole prosecuting reason to have somebody prosecuted. Many of us believe that we can have that language be more expansive and encompassing to basically include many other instances to which it would not be appropriate or allowed to use facial recognition software. As of right now, we are drafting our thoughts for round 2 edits on this piece of legislation. We will have that in on Monday. I know that myself and many other community members are quite eager to have this on the desks of council sometime soon. But please know it is moving and it's, I think, moving swiftly as well. Elizabeth, and then Travis, feel free to field any questions as well.
Thank you. Is it happening that facial recognition software is the sole basis of prosecutions? Like, are you? I mean, this is probably a dumb question. Is this like Ariana Slay? I assume is the person who is exercising the discretion about prosecutions.
So that was sort of a thing that I won't speak for anybody, but I know it's something that I was hung up about in that scenario of which I just don't see any prosecutor solely using that to prosecute somebody.
Right.
And so that's where we felt like there was a gap and opportunity to add more and development there, because as it currently exists, it just wouldn't do what we're looking for it to do. I will say personally, not on behalf of the working group or anybody else in this HRC as well, I personally would like to see it that there is just a sweeping ban on facial recognition software in general in the city of Ann Arbor. But I have to, and we have to, for anybody else is of the same mind, keep the consideration of like what council powers can actually do legally for this city, of which that's where I'm a bit hazy because I don't have a law degree. But that's something that I've been advocating for. But all of that to say, as it currently exists in our first draft, it's just not comprehensive, and it's not something that would be particularly potent in terms of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, because I mean, I was just thinking, and I this is the situation where like I know nothing about police work, and so I feel like I'm just stabbing in the dark. It strikes me that if facial recognition software is as inaccurate as I understand it to be for people of color, you don't want it to be used to even like bring people in and just sort of harass them. Like prosecuting them is like a completely different situation. There are like so many levels way below prosecution that I wouldn't want this to be used as an excuse to just like annoy people, like
exactly.
in a discriminatory way, you know, like harass, annoy, you know.
Right.
No, I completely agree with you, which is why like I want to know if there is a way, and this is something that I brought up during today's meeting, if there is any sort of way to just blanket ban it across all sorts of usage within the city. That's something that we need to look into. I think that with so many interests aligned in the group, there's been some miscommunications in like what the basis of what we're trying to do is. I think that there is, you know, we have some interests who want to sort of, you know, meet in the middle. I'm a bit more on the side of just outright ban it. And so that's something that we're working out, which is why we're taking this second round of drafts to perhaps be more inclusive of sort of our general thinking as well. Travis?
Yeah, that's a really good analysis of what happened today. I think to your point, Elizabeth, no, the answer is not in Ann Arbor. That is not currently happening. The two pieces that came back to us in the draft were, and I'll just read it directly from, it shall be unlawful for Ann Arbor or any Ann Arbor official to obtain, retain, access, or use any information obtained from a facial recognition system as the sole basis for prosecution, or any information obtained from a facial recognition system as the sole basis for issuing a civil infraction or fine under the laws of the city of Ann Arbor. And I think it was the unanimous consensus of the group that that was way too narrow, and that we wanted this expanded beyond. I mean, we wanted essentially, to your point, like, we don't envision a scenario where it is the sole basis for a prosecution, but the work group was tasked with exploring whether or not we wanted to use this for prosecution at all. And I think the answer of the work group was no. And so we pushed back on that and asked for an additional draft. We actually asked whether or not we could kind of modify it in a way so that it just ended. It shall be unlawful for Ann Arbor or an Ann Arbor official to obtain, access, or use any information obtained from a facial recognition system in the course of official business or whatever, because one of the pieces that we need to be conscious of is we can't prohibit an Ann Arbor official from like using facial recognition technology on their cell phone to access their device, right? So like that's where it needs to be like the personal use versus official use. And so we challenged the attorneys to kind of go back and rework this a little bit and come back to us with another draft. The one piece that Attorney Slay really encouraged us on is in the resolution that will accompany the ordinance. We will also call on law enforcement partners and prosecution agencies. So, you know, Washtenaw County's prosecutor and the Attorney General to also implement similar policies, because the reality is our reach is also relatively narrow, because you know, if the county prosecutor is doing something in Ann Arbor, we don't have the ability to prevent that from happening. And so kind of asking them to implement similar policies. And then the last piece is there are a couple of, because of Ann Arbor's unique position with, you know, with the stadium and things like that, there are a few individuals on Ann Arbor's police department who are actually paid by the federal government. And so there are also instances where we won't be able to stipulate if they are being directed by their federal law enforcement agency to do something. Yeah. We will not obviously be able to usurp federal direction.
I think I'm confused a little bit. what did folks find, or what is the difficulty with banning the use and the course and scope of an official conducting business? I mean, the course and scope of your job, as opposed to when you are.
That's what we asked for. There are a few cases that I think we would say maybe are legitimate uses of facial recognition technology in the city. And so one example is that one that the police department actually uses that's probably legitimate is that they actually use facial recognition technology in identifying John and Jane Doe corpses. And so that would be an instance where they would be using it, where it has been used and probably doesn't have long-term consequences. There are also currently, it sounded like, and this was new to me as of today, that the court systems are potentially using it as like instances for folks who have to verify their identity to start their vehicle, or things like that after drunk driving and those circumstances where the suggestion to us, and Aiden pushed back on this a little bit today, was that it's cheaper to use facial recognition than it is to use fingerprint technology in that case. And so, which was surprising to us, but that is why courts are potentially pursuing using it. And so there were some use cases, and what our suggestion was is we would prefer to have a broader ordinance with acceptable exemptions that are very clearly articulated, rather than going the other route and having a too narrow ordinance and then discovering civil liberty infractions later.
So, and just to follow up with him as well. So basically where we're at this point is, as Travis said earlier, sort of add the period sooner, and like that the officials just cannot use facial recognition software. I'm paraphrasing. And then we're in the process of drafting those exemptions, as Travis said, because personally, I would rather have the blanket ban with a list of 5 plus however many things that stipulates that you cannot do this for this reason, than have a list of saying you can do facial recognition software and these 20 or so circumstances where that would naturally create massive loopholes for these continued policing agencies, et cetera, to use the facial recognition software. So that's sort of our thinking.
And then it becomes a public discussion if we want to add, if the technology changes or a use occurs where we believe, or the city believes there's a legitimate reason to use the technology, it requires us to have a public discussion on adding that exemption as opposed to removing another situation where, it becomes a different conversation about whether or not the community wants the city to use facial recognition for that purpose going forward.
Is there a way to have a conversation so that a legitimate purpose that does not in any way single out or unfairly identify individuals with darker skin complexions? So if I guess I'm imagining a scenario where people say, it does disadvantage some folks, but on average, we feel that it contributes more to the community than it takes away.
Elizabeth, do you mind if I answer a question before? Because I see that your hand raised.
Or are you talking to me?
Yeah, is that fine?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just.
So with such a fairly new technology, it's of course been observed that people of color are absolutely and objectively disproportionately affected by this technology. However, it remains to be said that a huge fraction, at least from the data that I've seen, of people who are disproportionately affected, as well as people of color, are actually white women. And so we want to make sure that we're covering, I mean this seriously, in my professional opinion, I do not think that any single person benefits from such inherently and intrinsically broken technology. And so that's something that we're more trying to get across, and that, of course, people of color absolutely, and again, objectively, are disproportionately affected. However, it should be clear that this is a problem for each and every resident in Ann Arbor, period, as well. So that is a consideration that I hope very much to see in the final draft as well. But I still want it to be stated how this is an everybody problem within an area.
That's right. It's a vast invasion of privacy, or it could be. And it opens doors to it.
I think all the arguments should be made because it, you know, as technology advances and people begin to feel a greater confidence in it, then the standards for its use begin to, you know, slip away.
Agreed, and that's why we wanted the broader ban to begin with, rather than having a narrow ban that allows for use as technology advances. We wanted a broader ban that would require the community to have a new discussion if we were going to revisit this.
Can I add something? It occurred to me as you were explaining, Travis, the exceptions, the legitimate exceptions, like identifying a corpse and facial recognition for somebody, I presume for somebody who like is drunk driving, or is that what it, okay. Or wait, what would it be? Facial recognition for driving what?
It's for if you have a vehicle where you have to prove your identity and
okay. I was thinking of something else.
In order for the ignition to work, they were using they're transitioning to facial recognition technology as the second. It's the, you know, you blow to prove that you're not drunk and you have a facial.
Gotcha. Okay, so it is related to that. Okay, so those two examples, and I don't know if that was just the first two examples that popped into your head, but it strikes me that both of those examples are, okay, one is like a victim of a crime. I presume a dead person is a victim of a crime, and someone who has already been convicted of a crime. And so the category that strikes me as most problematic, that is somewhat narrow and yet specific enough, is like the person who is a suspect in a crime. And so if you drew that category as like facial recognition not being used in identifying or targeting a suspect in a crime, like that seems like that would catch what you're trying to get, and it wouldn't trigger any of it wouldn't accidentally catch the exceptions that you're describing, because that's kind of what we're talking about, right? The danger of facial recognition software and literally accidentally identifying somebody as participating in criminal activity. That's really what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most commonly talked about use of the technology, but I think that there are other ways. There are other examples of things that government could do where it's not necessarily utilizing the technology. It would be more passively utilizing the technology. So if we were to get to a situation where we have traffic cameras and things like that, where it's actually capturing data and retaining it, and kind of like adding to that database of faces, is that something we want the government doing? And so there are broader examples outside of the I would say public safety and like law enforcement realm as well.
All right, thanks.
Because one of the other examples that folks have frequently talked about is in public housing.
How in public housing?
Capturing faces as folks are coming in and out of buildings.
Yes, I don't, that's not good. Okay.
No.
Anything else? Will you update us? We're obviously very interested in this.
Yeah, I don't know if Aiden, if you mentioned, so we have assigned ourselves homework of getting all of our feedback on the first draft sent back in by close of business Monday, so that then Attorney Slay can kind of look through it and go back to work on a new draft, and then we'll have another meeting. And so hopefully that might happen before our next meeting, and we can give another update. But if not, we'll make sure that you all get updated.
Plus, want to do what Travis said. I have a personal goal of like having it done before the next meeting, so we can have further discussion like this. Also, I've just noticed that it's a very understandably sensitive subject that our constituents really want the ball moving on. So I think this is something that definitely can be a slam dunk for a lot of people, and definitely at the next meeting we can help out there.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, turn his face around so we can see him. Hello.
Newest member of the HRC, here he is.
Oh, he's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so beautiful.
Thanks. All right, have a good night, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Isaac.
Good night.
Bye.